All right, welcome back, fifth graders. This is lesson 7 with our problem set. Same thing what we did in lesson 10. You're going to multiply a decimal by a whole number using what you know about place value. So let's get started. All right, here we go for number 1. Same thing like we did last lesson. They want us to estimate the product. And then they want us to solve using standard algorithm. And I'm going to teach you guys how to use the thought bubbles to kind of show your thinking out loud on paper. It says draw an area model on a separate sheet of paper if that helps. We're going to skip that part because we want to make sure that we are proficient or fluent on multiplying using more of a standard algorithm kind of way. So let's look at 1a and let's round 1 and 38/100ths. Okay, round to the whole number. So it's either going to be closer to 1 whole or 2 wholes. So that's going to be closer to 1 whole. And then 32 is closer to 30 than it is to 40. So our answer is going to be close or around 30. It's not going to be 3,000. It's not going to be 300. Could be 40. Could be 20. Actually, it can't be 20 because we actually rounded our two numbers down. So we know it's going to be over 30. So keep that in mind. Now look at this think bubble right here, this little thought bubble. So if we wanted to make 1 and 38/100ths to be all out of hundredths, we would have 138/100ths. That's like saying you can multiply it by 100 and you would get 138. All right, so imagine now this decimal is gone. We have 138, and I could write the word hundreds off to the side, but I multiplied that in my head by 100 to get rid of that decimal. Do me a favor really quick and just kind of do a short little X and cross off that decimal, because we multiplied 1 and 38/100ths times 100 to get 138. And then we're going to change it back into a decimal. I'm going to show you a little trick. Let's go ahead and multiply as normal. 8 times 2 is 16, so you're going to put your 6 down and regroup the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 more is 7, and 2 times 1 is 2. Don't worry about that decimal. We'll bring it back at the very end. Cross off the 1s in 32, cross your numbers off up on top, 0 placeholder, and now you're doing the 10s. 3 times 8 is 24, so regroup your 2, bring down your 4. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 more is 11. Regroup your 1, bring your 1 down. 3 times 1 is 3, and then add 1 more is 4. So now we're going to add these up together. So we have 6, and then 7 plus 4 is 11. So regroup your 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 more is 4. And then you got 4 plus nothing in the thousands is 4. All right, so now look at this thought bubble right here. Okay, this is our answer, 4,416. Wait, 4,416 is too large. It's way over 30. It's actually 100 times too large because remember over here, we multiplied our decimal by 100. So the real product means we're gonna now take this and we're going to divide it by 100. So it gets 100 times smaller, which means think about it, if our answer has to be close to 30, this number 6 has to be in the hundredths place value, and that 1 needs to be in the tenths. So that means our decimal needs to be placed in between the 4, the second 4, and the 1 to give us 44 and 16/100ths. Let me make that decimal a little bit better. So that makes more sense right there when you divide it by 100, since we first multiplied the decimal 1 and 38/100ths by 100. We have to do the opposite to go back to get our final answer. So 1b, let's go ahead and do the estimation first. 3 and 55/100ths. Okay, that's kind of right in the middle between 3 and 4. So since it's 3 and 55/100ths, that's going to be closer to 4. And then 89 is obviously closer to 90. So you got 9 times 4. That's going to give you 36. And then you're going to add that 0 to give you 360. Now, in the thought bubble, we're going to write, we're going to say, hey, think. We need to take 3 and 55 hundredths, and we need to multiply it by 100 to get the decimal out of there, which would equal 355. So kind of think about that. That decimal is gone. You got 355 as our number, and we're going to multiply it by 89. So 9 times 5, that's 45. Regroup your 4, bring down your 5. 9 times 5 again is 45, plus 4 more, that will give you 49. And then 9 times 3 is 27. Add 4 more, that's going to give you 31. So I'm crossing off my 9s, or my 1s and 89, and I'm crossing numbers up on top. I'm putting a 0 placeholder so I can start my number in the 10s. 8 times 5, that's going to give you 40, so you're going to regroup your 4, bring down your 0. 8 times 5 again is 40, plus 4 more is 44. Regroup your 4, bring down your 4. 8 times 3, that's 24, plus 4 more, that's 28. So try to keep everything nice lined up. And then we're going to go ahead and add. We got 5 1s, 9 10s. We got 4 plus 1 is 5. 8 plus 3 is 11. And then we've got 2 plus 1 is 3. So we've got 31,595. But wait a second, think this is way too big than this, even though we actually rounded up on both numbers. So that means our answer is going to be smaller than 360. So what that means is, let's think about this. All right, 31,595. Since we over here multiplied by 100 to get the decimal away, we have to do the opposite. I'll do it in blue. We have to divide by 100 to find the actual answer. And I'll give you a hint. When we divide by 100, that's the hundredths. And we want that 5 to be in the hundredths place value. And we want the 9 to be in the tenths. So that means after the first 5 should be our decimal point. And then we have 95 hundredths, which makes sense because 315 is under 360. So that looks like a more reasonable answer. So 315 and 95 hundredths. All right, let's do 2. Let's solve using the standard algorithm. All right, and let's kind of think about this really quick. To get rid of that decimal in 5 and 40, or 5 and 4 tenths, we want to multiply this by 100. So in red, I'm going to rewrite the problem. Get rid of that decimal. We've got 504, and we're going to multiply that by 8. And now we got 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 3 is 3. Then 8 times 5 is 40. So, and we're going to add, don't need to add. I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm just used to having another digit in the tens column. So, oops, I erased that on accident. So we've got 4,032. But remember, since we multiplied this by 100, we need to divide this by 100, which means this 2 needs to be in the hundredths, this 3 needs to be in the tenths. So in black tells me that I need to put my decimal after the 0 to get 40 and 32 hundredths. I'm going to move down to C and tell myself, okay, I've got 83 and 41 hundredths. So 83 and 41 hundredths, let's multiply that by 100 to get rid of the decimal. So I would have 8,341. So I'm going to do 8,341, and I'm going to multiply it by 504. And before I even go, I'm seeing the 0 in the tens column has no value, so that's going to tell me, hey, I'm only going to have 2 partial products, not 3, since it's a 3-digit number, but that 0 has no value, so it's going to be a 2 partial product problem. So 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Regroup your 1, bring down your 6. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 more is 33. So now I'm done multiplying by the ones. I don't even need to multiply by the tens. And I'm going to the hundreds. So I need to start in the hundreds place value. So in blue, I need 2 0 placeholders. And now I can go ahead and multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4, that's 20. Take your 2, regroup it, bring down your 0. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 more is 17. And 5 times 8 is 40, plus that 1 on top is 41. So add those two together. You get 4, 6. 3 plus 5 is 8. Then 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. 1 plus 1 is 2. And 4 plus nothing is 4. So we've got, look at that, 4,203,864. But remember, since we multiplied it out by 100, we have to go back and we have to divide, and I'll do it in blue, we have to divide it by 100, which means this 4 needs to be in the hundreds, the 6 needs to be in the tenths. So we're going to have 42038 decimal point 64. So 42,038 and 64 hundredths. All right, so for number 3, they want us to use the whole number product and place value reasoning to place the decimal point. So we have to place the decimal point in the second product or the second answer spot and explain how you know that's where the decimal goes. All right, so we're going to go over to 3B. So let's look at this quick. They're telling us that 73 times 1,563 is, and here's the first product. Okay, they're telling you this is the right answer. Then they want to know what would the answer be if it's 73 times 15 and 63 hundredths. Notice that the same digits are over here, but the second number just has a decimal point. So if you think about this, this answer will be technically the same numbers over in the other problem, but since this right here, 63 hundredths, we would actually be multiplying this by 100 to make it this number, which means we have to divide this guy by 100 to put our decimal point right there after the 0. So that this 9 is in the hundredths and this 9 is in the tenths. So here's our explanation. We're going to say 15 and 63 times 100 would actually give us 1,563, just like over here in the first part of the problem. And then we're going to say, so 114,099 divided by 100 would be 1,140 decimal point 99 hundredths. So there's a little explanation that what we did up above. Now let's look at 3C. Same thing. If 46 times 1,239 is this product, they want to know what happens when you have 46 times 123 and 9 tenths. So this is out of tenths, not the hundredths, so we change place value right here. So remember, this number is going to be the same digits, but we're just going to have to figure out where does the decimal point need to go. So if this is in the tenths, that means this number needs to have a tenths, which means that 4 is in the tenths column and that decimal point needs to go in front of it. So think of 123 and 9/10. When you multiply it by 10, you're going to get 1,239, just like we did over here. So 56,994 divided by 10 would be 5,699 and 4/10. And there's our explanation on how we got the answer and how we placed the decimal. So number 4, Jenny buys 22 pens that cost $1.15 each and 15 markers that cost $2.05 each. They want to know how much did Jenny spend. So quickly, we like to take word problems and if we can, show it as a tape diagram to show our thinking. So this would represent all of the money she spent, which technically we don't know because that's what they're asking us. So we're going to put a little question mark. We do know that she bought pens and markers, so I can kind of split up the tape diagram. This could be the pens and this can be the markers. And write this down to kind of show our thinking on the problem. So whatever I do, you do. To figure out the pens, we need to do 22, and we have to multiply that by $1.15 each. And to figure out the markers, we need to do 15 times $2.05 each. And then we would have to add the pens and the markers together, the total for each, and then add them to get how much money she spent. So let's get started with the pens. Let's do the pens first. Okay, let's say, we have 22 times $1.15. So let's think about this. If I took $1.15 to get rid of the decimal, I'm going to multiply it by 100. And that's going to give me 115. And now I'm going to multiply it by 22. So we got 2 times 5, that's 10. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more is 3. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Done with the 1s in the 22 and crossing numbers up on top. 0 placeholder. And since the 2 and the 10s are the same as the 2 and the 1s, I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite the first partial product. So underneath the 3 is going to be a 0. Underneath the 2 is going to be a 3. And then there's going to be a 2 in front of it. Add those together. 0, 3, 5, 2. But remember, since I multiplied this by 100, I need to divide this by 100. So I'm going to say, let's take this number and let's divide it by 100, which means that this 0 needs to be in the hundreds. This 3 needs to be in the tenths. So the pens come out to be $25, decimal point, and 30 cents. All right, and that's our dollar amount for pens. Well, let's go do the markers. Let's get rid of that decimal in $2.05 and say let's multiply it by 100, which would then move the decimal all the way behind the 5 for 205. And let's multiply that by 15, and let's do the multiplication. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. And then 5 times 2 is 10. Bring down your 0 and then the 1. Then multiplying by the 1s and 15. 0 placeholder. And I love when we always have a 1 in any of our numbers to multiply because that's going to be super easy. So we got 5 0, 2. Add those together, 2, 7, 0, 3. But then remember, since we multiplied by 100 at first, we need to go back and divide by 100, which puts that 5 in the hundredths, the 7 in the tenths, so that our cost of markers would be $30.75. And now we can go ahead and add our two amounts up, $30.75, $25.30. Add those together. We got 5 pennies. We've got 7 dimes, 3 dimes. That's 10 dimes, which is technically a dollar. So you're going to regroup your 1, bring down your 0. Make sure you have a decimal point. $1 plus $0 plus $5, that's $6. And then 3 tens plus 2 tens, that's going to be 5 tens. So $56.05. So let's go ahead and write our sentence out. So a very short sentence answering the question, Jenny spent $56.05.